All righty. Super excited to be here with the Query and Outer Signal team. We're going to have both Tyler and Samir from both representatives coming together and talking to you guys about all things e-commerce and all things tracking your customers, making sure that you know who is actually purchasing your product. First, we're going to have Samir at Query talk about all things media buying, all things that you should be focused on in the year of 2026 and how you can be scaling your brand up and to the right. Let's introduce and get Samir inside of here. Super excited to bring him in. Samir, how are you doing?
Good. Tyler was supposed to go first, actually. If you want to switch over to him and let him do his thing, and then we'll swing.
Let's do Tyler first. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Colin? Wonderful. Glad to be here.
Super excited. Could you just give us a little bit of backdrop before you start on basically what Outer Signal is?
Yeah, so Outer Signal is a customer and product intelligence platform that basically bridges the gap between who the person on the other side of the screen clicking checkout is and the actual human and the nuance that exists within different personas built upon the individuals that we're able to enrich within your customer database.
That's incredible. I've heard, and you can confirm if this is true or not, I've heard that you located Kim Kardashian for a customer. Is this true?
We sure did. Yep. Had been buying from Magic Mind for 2 years. 5 days after plugging us in, they had the light bulb moment that her EA had been purchasing and shipping to her house, and the connection was made.
That's unreal. I think she's a pretty sizable influencer to probably make a connection with when it comes to the influencers in the world. I feel like she's probably a pretty, sizable get for most brands.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you can get a free post on her story, which would normally, cost someone else 7 figures, I think that's a pretty good win to put under the belt.
Huge. Absolutely huge case study. Well, I will let you take it from here and rock and roll, and super excited to hear about all things Outer Signal.
Cool. All right, let's get into it. Let me pull up the screen here. Okay. All right, we are in business. That is showing it for everyone, right, Colin? I can't see if it is on my end, but just want to make sure. There it is, money. Okay, cool. So Outer Signal, as I mentioned, the big gap that we initially set out to solve was just this really harsh reality that we as marketers truly have no idea who our customers are outside of what PDPs they may have clicked on, how much they'd spent in the last X amount of days. And so we've been leveraging a lot of that information to, number one, segment and target based on those layers of kind of behavior and transaction. But then as well, there was this huge realization that pretty much at any given moment in time, regardless of whatever priority a business has, there is more than likely someone purchasing and a happy customer that can help you get to that goal quicker. And so to your call out around Kim Kardashian, there's the obvious use cases of, are there mega influencers, actresses, professional athletes, musicians that are purchasing our product that we could potentially create an authentic relationship with to take advantage of their audiences? And so by having the ability to, enrich the individual profile, we've given brands visibility into massive unlocks across a number of different dimensions with that information. And so what we do is essentially we take the individual profile, it's triggered at the order event with whatever ecom backend you have, and we take and completely transform the order, which you essentially see their name, their email, what address and what products to put in the box. That's really all we understand. We enrich that into a much deeper understanding of who the actual human being is. We are ingesting a number of different data points from the public domain that give you visibility into what do they do for a living, what types of interests do they have, what are they saying across social media platforms, what are their property values and things of this nature. So you actually have a real understanding of who the individual is that is interacting with the brand. And historically, you've been able to get closer to this, right? You can do post-purchase surveys. We can scan our reviews and try to kind of digest the sentiment there. We can go and hire a consultancy to run consumer insight projects. which is directionally much better than doing nothing. But at the same time, the selection bias is so real within that. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of brands I've purchased from at this point online. I might have left 2 reviews. I will absolutely never do a post-purchase survey, and there's no chance that I'm going to raise my hand to do a consumer insight research project. And the reality is that that is a vast majority of our customers. And so you can get useful insights there, but what we do is we give you a much more complete picture across every single person that is actually purchasing and interacting with your brand in that meaningful way. So what we are doing is, the individual level, we can do this kind of, obviously the VIP detection use case with Kim and athletes. Am I a CPG wellness brand? Is there some sort of high, notable public figure who's a thought leader in the space that our category operates in? Are they purchasing our product? But where it gets really interesting is because we can analyze all of those on an individual basis, we are then able to identify and surface who the actual personas or customer cohorts are that exist within your database using actual real customer data across every single purchase that has come through the store. And so what that turns into is generally 6 to 10 based on the number of, or the size of the database, the diversity within the database of these key groups that we will be able to identify and then surface to each of these brands. The dimensions that we are then able to give you these insights on are, one, this qualitative dimension, meaning psychographic, demographic information that gives you a very clear read on who are these people, what do they do for a living, where do they live in the country, what are the things that they are motivated by, e.g. problems they might want to solve with our product. And then because we are ingesting so much of that public domain, what are they saying online across social media platforms? Are there biographies, interviews? Have they authored publications? Whatever it is, again, within that public domain, we are ingesting that. We are running it against your website, your PDPs and descriptions, against the reviews that exist on the website. So we can actually identify the connective tissue with why this group of people has an affinity towards the brand versus maybe the second or third kind of key persona groups that exist within your database today. And so, when you look at this, for all intents and purposes, this is a creative brief, right? It's like, who do we need to say it to? What do we need to say? And how do we need to say it? And so this has been incredibly impactful for brands when they think about what to prioritize in terms of their kind of creative roadmap from like a testing lens. Hey, if we want to target our top 3 personas, we know that we need to swim in this lane in terms of the creative testing that we deploy. And then again, the messaging, the angle, and even the products within our own catalog that we merchandise to each of these core groups of people. We now have direction and the ability to be very surgical with how we approach that. The second dimension, which really closes the loop, is this quantitative breakdown. Because we're connected to the transaction layer with Shopify, or again, whatever the e-com backend is, we are agnostic in that sense. But you can actually understand, like in this case, okay, this group of people makes up a less than 11% of our total customer base, but they're driving upwards of 30% of our total revenue. Like, how do we go find more of these people as quickly as possible? And so you're really able to triangulate, who are our customers, which set of customers has the highest leverage potential from like a revenue lens for the business, and then how do we go acquire them as effectively as possible using all of the data that we can triangulate from the qualitative breakdown, the kind of products that this persona tends to purchase with our product affinity index there. And so again, it gives you everything you need to just be very tactical and surgical with the groups of people we go after, and then how we go after them to acquire them in the most efficient way possible. And I know we're talking about paid performance, but this is also incredibly impactful from a CRM side of the house, right? It's like, if I am a health conscious person that's focused on kind of the ingredients and in the way my body feels, the way that I should interact with you after that first purchase is going to be very different than, someone who's maybe just kind of like an active retiree who's all about feeling good and kind of relaxing and whatever. And so the ability to just truly understand the different cohorts that exist within the DNA of your business is going to enable you to be far more impactful with each of the touch points you have across CRM, and then far more efficient on paid channels to go acquire more of these types of customers that we know are our bread and butter as the business. So that's really, the core of Outer Signal. I think another thing that's just worth mentioning is we just recently acquired Monocle, which, for those who don't know, agentic email SMS site behavior program. And so now what we're doing is building the pipes to connect all of the super deep insights at the individual level as well as the persona level to power the way that you can essentially, in an agentic fashion, have true one-to-one messaging going out to each of the people in your CRM. So we won't go further into that, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's pretty badass. So with this type of data, I mean, one of the great kind of things that we've seen happen is with Jolie, they did a number of different tests, kind of pressure testing the Outer Signal insights. What they saw is when they built lookalikes on an Outer Signal, because you can basically export every single customer within each persona group, push that into Meta as a seed to create a lookalike. You now know, again, what messaging, what angle, what creative should we leverage in this campaign targeting this cohort of our customers. They ran it against broad-based targeting, they ran it against interest-based targeting, and then they ran an Outer Signal lookalike into Meta. And the results were out like video game style. It's like this, you can see here, huge lift. Because the campaign was so much more efficient with the CPA drop, they got way more spend into the campaign. And so these are the types of things that brands are doing with this information to just have huge unlocks in how they go and acquire net new customers. One of the other ones that's really, really interesting as well is Mizzen and Main. And so similar, right? They plugged us in, they pulled in over 100,000 customers into Outer Signal. And then they identified this kind of C-suite executive audience. They activated it on Meta, and it just blew the socks off of every other campaign they've ever ran across Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And so, again, just taking the insights, bottling them, putting them into action across the different, campaigns or touch points that you're going to deploy for new customer as well as existing in CRM. There's just no chance you're going to lose on it. So yeah, I mean, that in a nutshell is what we're doing. We've got a number of other stories. I think the other interesting thing worth calling out is, sure, we can put this into our ad campaign, but where it gets really interesting is you leverage these insights like all the way across the funnel. Meaning, sure, we've got the ad, we've built the creative, the copy, the angle, we've got the audience we're pushing this towards. But then as well, we take all of those insights and inject them into the post-click experience in terms of where each of these campaigns is going to click into. And so when you just really close the loop and insert all of these insights and intelligence into every touch point that each of these groups of people are going to interact with, the relevance, the connection that you build, just pulling on the heartstrings and everything they care about, it is just so much more compelling for them to convert because of the connection that you create through the messaging, through the creative. So that's Outer Signal. Yeah.
Tyler, absolutely amazing. And I heard a little birdie told me that you are basically giving, I think, 200 free credits to just do a little test on your store? Isn't that right?
Yeah, we do have a free trial. It's actually what happens. You connect Shopify, we pull in the most recent 1,000 customer profiles that you have. From there, we will then surface the top persona that we identify within that subset of, usually it's somewhere between, it lands at like 1,200 generally. And so the intention there is like, sure, in theory, this looks cool, but like, what does this actually look like with my real customer data? What insights can I extract from just this sliver of what we have, so that you have confidence that, hey, let's unlock this, let's get cooking.
I want to know if Kim Kardashian's buying from me. That's what I want to know.
Dude, it's honestly wild. Anytime a brand hooks up, without fail, there is someone who is like their eyeballs just blow up. I've seen Leonardo DiCaprio. I have seen James Franco. I have seen insane athletes in the brands.
Wow.
I've seen Drew Barrymore was someone who had been purchasing to spend over like 200 grand with the business.
Wow.
And so it was pretty cool. I mean, it's always cool. Yeah.
My friend used it as well, and he saw David Hasselhoff of all people.
There you go.
Right? Proof is in the pudding. Tyler, that's amazing. That's amazing. The Hoff, amazing. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to pull you back out so we can introduce the one and only Samir at QRY. Let's introduce Samir at QRY. Super, super excited. Samir, give us a little backdrop on what QRY is. What are you doing over there?
So QRY is a paid media agency. We specialize in brand and performance marketing. So our thesis is that a lot of brands are really good at performance marketing, but it never lifts the brand. And then a lot of brands are really good at brand marketing, but it's never performance driven. And so we help brands bridge that gap and really scale into new growth and that next level. I also like to say that we have some of the best data and best media strategists on staff, and we're really good at solving really complex problems, and that's what makes it fun.
So, and for this, you're not using normal data, right? You're not using your typical run-of-the-mill data you can just find on the street. What are you using here?
Yeah, so we built Athena, which is our own data platform. And so we're actually pulling in all of our media data and results and able to actually compare how you're performing against market, against others, anonymized data across the entire portfolio. And we actually publish a scorecard every month. So you can actually see how we are doing on a month-to-month basis, because we're so confident in our ability to do well. We want you to go take a look and see how we would do for you.
That's amazing. I love proprietary data. It is the new oil. Let's rock and roll. I'm going to get out of here, Samir, so that you can rock and roll with this.
Cool. All right, let's chat Signal to spend. So Tyler, I really appreciate you kind of walking through the concept of personas and celebrity and all of that. And I wanted to show that there's value in the data beyond I think celebrity is a big piece of it, and realizing that there's all these really cool people that use your platform is really valuable. But I think Outer Signal also gives you access to this persona level data that as a media buyer gives us access to really interesting optimizations and efficiencies and new ideas. And so let's talk about that here. I think one of the biggest pieces that people have is you are really sitting on so much data and your ad account never sees it. Customer data is not a problem. We have so much customer data. We know where we're shipping to. We know how people are working our site. It's just fragmented and it's not contextualized. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that is an opportunity. I also think that we have a lot of overwhelming amounts of data, which then just becomes a lot of curiosity plays versus really action driving plays. And so one of the things I always tell people is I'm happy to pull that report, but what are we going to do with it once we have that answer? And so one of the big questions that we get on the media side is how do we take data that we have and turn it into something that we can actually do something with? And so that's how we think about it. Everything starts with a persona. It's who the customer is. And from us, when we think about this, that means that we're able to then power three big things. I put Meta on here because I think most people are spending a ton on Meta, but this honestly can impact most channels that take audience signal. So you can think your PMAXs, you can think your Metas, you could think your live ramps and programmatic display and CTV, but ultimately the personas are what really drive success. Most brands take personas broadly and just say, hey, my customer is a woman. She's between the ages of 21 and 44, and she has a high household income, but that really doesn't tell you enough to be able to make meaningful decisions. Similarly, on the creative side, the more deep you can get with your persona, you can speak to the person. And now you're doing the thing that all of us in sales know is talk about the person, not about yourself. So much creative talks about the product, doesn't talk about the person. And so understanding your customer, understanding your consumer allows you to talk to the person. Contextual buying. While Meta and Google make up a lot of the ad spend, there is a lot of contextual high impact placements. If you're a travel brand, airports are valuable to you. But really understanding, okay, airports are valuable, but is my customer an international flyer or are they a domestic flyer? Do they tend to go to specific places? What is that flight path that matters most to me? The goal on the media buyer is how do we reduce waste. And the more we understand our customer, the more targeted we can get and the less wasteful we can be with media spend. So like I said, persona is the key. If your average is a $260 lifetime value, but you've got a persona where their LTV is a lot bigger and you know, hey, it's an endurance athlete. They're 4X orders a year. They're age of 28 to 40. Well, endurance athlete is really interesting and valuable. So really understanding all of that, knowing who the customer is, how they work, and surfacing that real time is really valuable from a segmentation. So what do we mean by powering Meta and powering your AI platforms? Most brands right now will give their entire audience set and their audience portfolio and say, hey, here are my past customers. The brands with enough data are doing this in a more segmented way and saying, hey, here are my high value customers that like to do X, and this is my persona. And that allows Meta to then go after those people specifically. Audience suggestions is a really valuable tool set that can be really important. So seed it with your highest value cohorts, not your whole purchase file. Oh, thanks, Colin. I think one of the biggest opportunities here is really just understanding that the ingredients to AI is the most valuable piece of it. And so making sure that you're actually getting the right data into the platform means that you're going to get the best results out. From a creative standpoint, knowing that the persona is a creative brief, you can now look at how do we actually speak with the same product for different reasons. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say I have a supplements brand or a beauty brand, and I have a gift buyer versus someone that's going to do this as a daily ritual. Those are same product, two different personas. How I speak to them is going to be extremely different. What I prioritize is going to be really important too. Creative has a cost. And so knowing which persona matters the most and how you can maximize your impact against those personas is really valuable. And so this is one thing that I think is becoming more and more important, especially on Meta, where it is really your creative is your targeting. Everyone has heard this now. It's been said ad nauseum. So if you don't understand who you are targeting and then build creative against that, my favorite line here is one creative for everyone is one creative for no one. It doesn't matter if I show it to you. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter. Lastly, it really powers contextual buying. I think one of the most interesting things here is occupation, age, and then home value and interests. These three pieces are important for just understanding how to reach people. Occupation is really valuable because we have a client of ours, we found out that most of their customer base ends up being nurses and doctors. It was really interesting. It was unexpected, but what it allowed us to do is now we do out-of-home campaigns outside of hospitals because they have high traffic for nurses and doctors. And so that ended up being a really valuable awareness play for them, even though it is not a medical product at all, and it just happens to be. Similarly, home value and interest is really interesting because home value allows you to do zip code targeting. So you can do average home value and then go and prioritize zip codes where those home values exist. And then interest, obviously, for just endemic buys, publishers, media partners, TV shows, things like that. I think everyone is so focused on Meta and Google, and what they're forgetting is while those platforms are fantastic, there's a whole nother world of advertising that still exists, and it can be just as impactful, and in many cases more impactful because it's understated. So how do we put this into perspective all around today? Pull your highest LTV persona, truly understand who they are. Build it as a platform, build it as a customer seed list, and feed it to Meta as a signal, feed it to Google as a signal, anywhere else where you get data suggestions. Don't target them directly, use it as a suggestion. Write creative to that persona. Help the creative make sure that it fully resonates with that person. We really want to make sure it stands out. And then choose context from the attributes. Really think about third parties, platforms, and placements that could have really low CPMs, but really, really valuable for your customer, and start to test some of those. So here's my thing that I pose to everyone is don't leave with a list. There's a lot in today's webinar. Leave with one decision you'll change this week. And my recommendation would be really having an understanding of who that core persona is. Who is your high LTV persona that you want to maximize? Or who is the persona you're trying to engage with? Who's the persona that's your audience expansion that shows the largest opportunity?
Incredible. We're all coming back to stage. Let's rock and roll. I have some Q&A. I have some questions for you guys. Samir, you're talking about home value targeting, zip code targeting. Walk me through that, because it's fascinating given basically CPMs on Meta are just atrocious for the past couple of years. I think we all know that. It's pretty sad. Could you talk about this kind of home value targeting? And you're talking about placing direct mail with that, I think.
Yeah, so we'll do direct mail or CTV targeting to specific zip codes. It's pretty fantastic because it is just another lever for understanding your customer, right? So if you know household income for your customer is extremely high or home value is extremely high, there are certain zip codes that are just not going to be worthwhile for you to advertise in. And so how do you exclude the ones that don't matter and prioritize the ones that do? You can do that on Meta. You can do that on Google as well. Obviously, their targeting is a little bit more sophisticated. So 9 out of 10 times we found that it's not valuable to do there. It's already being done automatically. But what about your other channels that you're not thinking about that aren't as sophisticated as Meta and Google? That's where the manual buying starts to become more valuable.
That's incredible. Tyler, a follow-up question for you. Say that I started to identify all these amazing influencers for my Shopify brand. I got 20 now. What is the initial first step for my reach out to them? How do I start that conversation and switch it from just over, on the internet to an actual relationship with the brand?
Yeah, great question. So every brand kind of has a different operating cadence and how they want to pursue those partnerships. And so some of the cooler things that I've seen deployed are they'll tier it, meaning, hey, we want to keep track of like micro influencers, for example. Anybody, so you can set a filter on, hey, anybody who makes a purchase that has more than somewhere between 10 to 50,000 followers. You can choose any social platform. You can isolate a particular platform that you're, hey, we're going ham on TikTok right now or whatever that might be. And so what's really cool is like in that case, a lot of times brands don't necessarily want to invest a ton of like resource and time into building this very personal connection with them, right? And so, I've got 15,000 followers on IG, let's say. Outer Signal places a tag on my profile, which persists through to Klaviyo or whatever ESP they're leveraging. That goes into a particular segment, which triggers a slightly different post-purchase onboarding flow, which is more geared towards, hey, we saw that you purchased, appreciate the support, we love what you do. Here's a link to our affiliate program if you have any interest in joining forces. So that way it's like, it's always on, automated, running in the background. You're getting as many at-bats as possible and you're never missing a case where rather than like chasing people, hey, we'll pay you to post about our product, blah, 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 which again, not like this isn't an either or situation. This is like super complementary. But if you can find one of those people that already is purchasing, they're paying you for your product, they love the product, the relationship and the authenticity that comes out of that, if and when they do go to their audience, is very much more felt by the people who, subscribe to said person. So that's one thing that I've seen rolled out that's really effective for just, getting all the at-bats. And then as they start to compound, right? If I've got 10, 15, 20,000 followers, once you've got 5 to 10 of those locked in, that's huge. You've got a couple 100,000 people now that are paying attention to the brand. In the cases of like mega influencers, there's obviously a fine line, right? Like you have with great power comes great responsibility. It's like you have so much insight into these people. And if you were to just reach out and say like, hey, I saw that you have a $10 million home and you have this many followers, blah, blah, blah. They're gonna be like, what the hell is happening right now?
Yeah.
And so a lot of brands approach it in a way where there's not even necessarily a direct ask. It's like, hey, we saw this happen. There's a number of different triggers that you can automate. So it's like, hey, I've got 5 million followers. Slack notification immediately goes to whomever runs partnerships on the team. Then as well, we'll push through a tag that goes to Klaviyo. We can push a meta field to Shopify so that fulfillment now knows as I'm packing the order, hey, this is a super important person. We're going to put in a handwritten note. We're going to load this box with products that we want to seed to create an incredible experience. And then if that person, like Kim, for example, that's what Magic Mind did. They noticed it happened. They loaded her next shipment with just a gang of stuff. And then she just went on her own, just went to Instagram and just posted about how rad the brand was. And so they'll use that as a litmus. Like, hey, did this land with the person? Did they go to their audience without any sort of ask? Great. Now this is our opportunity to reach out in a more formal manner to see if there's a partnership that we can establish more long-term.
I love that.
So it's actually really interesting, Tyler. I love that you guys have a trigger for tags. I didn't even know about that. I think it'd be really cool. Like an opportunity is creating an audience in Klaviyo that's just like, hey, these are customers of ours that have over 10,000 Instagram followers, and like running a brand campaign. So you're always top of mind against them, right? Like it's just that segmentation that becomes really valuable.
Yeah. So, I mean, any of those attributes, right, that you saw in the individual profile, it's all structured on our back end. And so you have the ability to, one, segment on any of those attributes or criteria, and then two, you can push those through to any of the other tech infra that you have. And so Klaviyo is an obvious use case. Another one that's actually really interesting that brands have started to leverage quite a bit is they're now pushing the outer signal attributes into Gorgeous or Customer, their help desk, so that as tickets come up, now the rep has total visibility into who they're talking to. And then they can also, that can dictate the resolution that comes out of the ticket, because it's like, hey, if I understand more about you, do you care about a discount, or do you want free product, or you just want a pat on the back? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And also like, well, how much should I give you because you've got a following of X, or you are a celebrity of Y, right? Like,
exactly.
It's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible amount of data that you guys are ingesting and revealing. Hopefully someday, I get revealed that crazy influencers are buying from my store, and I can just text them, I'm just texting Kim Kardashian. Wouldn't that be fun? I'm kidding. My wife would hate that. Samir, follow up to you. Talking about creative, you talked a lot within your presentation that creative is now the targeting. And I think one of the biggest questions with Meta right now is volume with creative angles. Could you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think brands are they're kind of all over the place. It's like, well, should we make 10,000 ads every single month? Or I don't know, I see this brand over here and they make 60 million ads every month. I want to be like this brand. Well, I guess I do that. Could you talk a little bit more about this?
Oh, you know how to push my buttons, don't you, Colin? I like to say creative volume without purpose is one of the biggest failures for a brand. It is the equivalent of throwing spaghetti on the wall. And I think people look, so we're a media buying agency. We do reports at the end of the month. We do reports constantly, but we do deep dive reports at the end of the month. And it's, okay, this is how much we spent on ads, right? This is how much we spent on Meta performance marketing, and this was our return. No one ever includes, and this is how much it cost us to create all the creative that we had. And so I always challenge our brands and challenge brands that say they want to have a ton of creative. There is a creative testing curve. You do need a lot more creative than you think you do. You don't need 60 million. If you need 60 million ads, I tell you that you don't understand your customer and you are just trying to figure out what works at any given point. We follow a number called the creative win rate, and that's how we measure the success of our creative briefing. We're a media buying agency. We don't do creative, but we are gold on getting you guys the information you need to be able to give us the best creative. So creative win rate is an important creative for us, a metric for us. How much of the creative that we received actually scaled and achieved your goals? right? So if only 1% of the creative we got from you ever achieved its goals, we are briefing you really poorly, right? Like, it doesn't matter what happens with that 1%. If we can only do it 1% of the time, that's pretty sad. I would say, of the best of brands, of the best of creative partnerships, and with really deep creative, we only get a creative win rate of about 40%. So think about that for everyone that goes, oh, Meta's AI is absolutely going to take over everything and do it right. It only gets it right 60% of the time, so, 40% of the time. It gets it wrong 60% of the time. So I challenge people to really spend some time and think around, what's the creative that's actually driving results? What was in that 40, or most brands that we see when they come to us are at 25 to 30% win rate, and we try and push them to 40% as quickly as possible in the briefing process. What were the key pieces? What's the persona? What was the concept that actually led you to be successful? And how do you constantly track that?
I love that. I love that. Well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of today's webinar. You guys were absolutely incredible. Anyone has any questions or wants to get in touch with either of you, go directly to their LinkedIns, shoot them a DM. It was amazing having you guys on, and really looking forward to seeing what both of you guys are doing in the future, affecting the world of e-commerce and all of the things that we're doing today. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It was awesome. Appreciate it.